Today I'm joined by Alex Leutwyler, owner and CEO of Emblem Builders out of San Diego, California. Emblem specializes in the construction of ICD 705 compliant scif and scif environments, delivering highly secure mission-critical facilities in one of the most demanding construction sectors in the country. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Hector.
So let's get started with the general contractor's role in this space. From a general contractor's perspective, how is building a scif fundamentally different from a traditional commercial project?
You know, I think that the world of high security construction has a lot of elements that marry or mirror what you would see in a traditional commercial construction project. Where they differ in the high security world is the elements that don't typically come up in a standard commercial project. And so it's our job as general contractors to evaluate those things and make sure they're integrated. So as an example, oftentimes, we'll see wall sections and, drywall and framing and things of those nature that truly represent what we would see in traditional construction, where we have performance requirements and standards that we have to meet on the high security side. As an example, acoustic protection. We can't just build a standard wall with a couple of sheets of drywall and assume that that's going to meet the acoustic requirement for protecting that space. Oftentimes these spaces have requirements that have a threshold to ensure that there's no intelligibility or speech isn't leaving the space in such a way that somebody might be able to hear it and intercept that information. Our goal is to protect those spaces in a way that ultimately achieves the accreditation standards as required. And so you'll see additional wall boards being built into the spaces to ensure acoustically they're performing at the level that's required. You'll see RF mitigation such as foils and specialty doors and waveguides that integrate into existing commercial construction fixtures and elements, but have special considerations that have to be brought into the planning phase of the project to ensure that at the end of it, we have, a space that's accreditable and meets the federal government's stringent standards. So it's not as easy as, traditional construction. It requires a team of professionals who are looking at the project in a way that have the end goal in mind, which is ensuring that the project meets its performance criteria and accreditation standards.
Is it safe to say, ICD 705 projects require precision almost at every phase?
Yeah, it's interesting because, in a traditional construction project, you might have a detail that's missed and you can go back in and maybe rework the drywall or, rework the duct position. Oftentimes in an ICD 705 project, it's early integration to those elements that's the critical part. You have a duct that's coming through a wall, and that duct needs to be not only acoustically protected, but has RF mitigation protections and then man bar sections that are included inside that wall section. And so if we don't properly account for them during the phase that they initially rough in or set their initial ductwork in, it can cause large problems. And it's not just a quick fix with the mechanical contractor. It turns into, the drywall contractors coming back, the framing contractors coming back, your specialty RF teams coming back to ensure that everything reintegrates appropriately. So precision is key. Precision is the thing that will make the project move smoothly and get to, again, ultimate goal always is accreditation.
At what stage in a scif project does the GC have the most influence on success? And when do you normally see a project go sideways?
That's a good one. So I think a misnomer or maybe a misconception that any general contractor can step into the role of being the person responsible for facilitating a space that has the standards that are set forth in the ICD tech spec. And so I believe it's the responsibility of the team of people that come together, owners, security specialists, and security contractors, general contractor. All these individuals really need to know and have had experience inside this space. I've seen my fair share of failures. I've personally had failures. We grow and develop and learn and move forward, right, and make sure that those failures are learning lessons that are no longer a a sticking point for us in the future. But as an example, I remember we did a door project where the initial plans called for just an acoustically rated door. So we're just protecting the acoustics of the space. The federal government, the program team, there is no RF requirements for the space. So halfway through the project, we've got all the framing done, we've got drywalls all buttoned up, we're ready to install our door, and that moment comes where the customer, the government goes, hey, we've got TEMPEST requirements now. And so we go, oh, well, wait, that actually changes a lot of things. We had some foil in the wall because we were looking forward for you to make sure that future you didn't have to tear out this drywall and not have to deal with the foil. But we didn't wrap our door jambs to ensure that new door, as it slides in, is mechanically connected to that foil.
Right.
And so the door changes shape. We have to rework the rough opening. And so that was a great learning experience in that we said, yes, no problem, we'll get that RF door taken care of for you. And then we get it in and we go, oh wait, the opening's correct, but the foil's not wrapped. So we ended up having to rip out a section of drywall around the opening so that we could integrate some more foil to tie into that RF door assembly. Ultimately, all the pieces have to come together to work really well in a system, and a poorly installed RF door, if it's not properly connected to the whole RF system, isn't going to allow the space to perform at the level it's required to. And so that's a detail now that I always double check. I look at those RF mitigation details pretty heavily in my projects because I want to make sure that our team is providing, again, something that's going to perform at the RF specifications.
Gotcha. I think you had mentioned something in that statement that kind of brought me to my next question here. What are the biggest risks from a GC standpoint that typically don't exist in a typical construction environment in terms of high security versus traditional construction?
Yeah, so I think general contractors who don't have experience in high security construction, the risk is you don't know what you're stepping into. The risk is there are more details that are out of your ordinary that, if not accounted for, can cause problems at the very end. And they oftentimes become costly problems. So general contractors, our responsibility is to look at the project holistically, come up with a game plan working with our subcontractors and our team and the security folks and the program management to develop a solid plan to execute to get to accreditation, right? It's not just that we get through the building department and they sign off, but it's also that we get the program management team and the accrediting official who's from the government going to say that this is an accredited SCIF. We need them all to bless it. And so as a general contractor, oftentimes I think, typical finishes and fixtures that would go inside of a commercial space, those are all like right at the top of your mind, but it's integrating those specialty details to add hardening or acoustic protection or RF integration so that we're working with all of the subcontractors in tandem so that all the details come together to achieve the stated requirements for the project. You can slap foil on a wall and hope that it performs, or you can be purposeful and design a system that will perform because you worked with the team to come together with a proper solution for the space.
I think that's great. I think if I hear you correctly, what we're really looking for in terms of the differences between the two is prevention.
Right.
And so from your experience, how important is early collaboration between the GC, security consultants, and specialty product providers in secure facilities?
Critical. It's extremely critical that the whole team understands how the project's going to work together. And so, a project comes together when everybody understands the requirements and everybody understands how all those pieces of equipment come together to meet the mission outcome. And so early integration, even in the design phase, is critical. Ultimately, as a general contractor, I want to have a design that clearly spells out the products that I'm going to be using for a project. Not only does it support the customer in helping them understand the performance they're going to get out of their space, but it helps me as a general contractor know that we're integrating the right details to ensure that that specialty RF acoustic door meets the requirements, or a window that has an RF requirement is properly filmed and filtered and protected. And so as a contractor, we strive to know those details early on so that at the end of the day, we're working with the team to provide the best outcome we can.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something there in terms of Tempest. In the last 20 years, the technical demands of ICD 705 have evolved significantly. How has Tempest and RF mitigation changed how you approach both the construction planning and the material selection from the onset of the project?
Yeah, when I started building SCIFs, 10 years ago, Tempest was kind of a nice to have, not a must have. And that has significantly changed over the last several years. Back in the 80s, we were building Faraday cages with copper-lined walls, and we were building true, like, no signals in, no signals out spaces. And then in the 90s, that kind of shifted away from the Tempest requirements being as front and center. And now we're kind of seeing full cycle that coming back with the threats that are, truly prevalent in the world today. And so Tempest is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. And so as a contractor, we have to think about it from the jump, whether I'm working with a customer in a design build approach and we're talking through their requirements. We always require our customers to help us build something for them. And so the way they help us is by knowing what the demand is from their federal government partner on the accreditation side. And so knowing whether this is like a low-level Tempest threat or a high-level Tempest threat, it completely changes the products that we're incorporating into our space. It completely changes the design of some of the way that we would apply those Tempest measures, whether it be foil or waveguides or window films or doors. It's of critical importance, and it's something that has to be accounted for early in the project. Otherwise, you'll end up ripping things out and going backwards. And so that's the last thing we want to put our customers through, is provide something that gives them the desired outcome from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think another kind of point of contention in the ICD 705 space versus what we may have seen 10, 15, even 20 years ago is now the owners, right? The building owners are now expecting more of these mission critical spaces, right? So it's not only hardened shelters, it's not only kind of your old Cold War style SCIF. Right. A lot of the owners are looking to GCs and designers on how do you balance mission security requirements with modern expectations around daylighting, wellness, and occupant experience. That's
something that's kind of always on the forefront of my mind. When I first started building SCIFs, you were building kind of desolate white boxes inside of another building that you would never see the light of day. You'd have these men and women going into these spaces, working for 8 to 10 hours, and coming out, getting the fresh air and getting, a chance to be in the real world.
Right.
And so it's nice to see that owners and program teams are looking to create spaces where the human element is of critical importance. It's something that I desire to see more of as I believe the industry is shifting for the next generation of security professionals who have to work in these spaces. They have a new demand. They require a space that's nice to come to every day. And so in that way, we're looking at design elements, not just from the perspective of does it meet the mission's requirement of giving X number of desks for X number of people. We're looking at how do we make a person feel more comfortable in this space. So what kind of lighting are we selecting? Is there a way to integrate windows into this space to allow the ability to see outside and get the sense of nature and life that is so lacking in so many of these spaces now? And so oftentimes, we would paint all the walls white, and that was it, and that was enough. Right. Because we're going to put these engineers in this space, and that's enough for them. And now we're trying to create spaces where men and women come into these rooms, these high security facilities, and feel like it's a nice place to work. They are mission critical to our national security, and we need to take care of them like we would take care of anybody else who's supporting our programs throughout the states. And so it's my goal as a contractor to integrate and implement as many of these features to provide that kind of environment for the people who serve us so well.
Absolutely. If a project owner came to you today on their first ever SCIF build, what advice would you give to them before they ever break ground?
I think the advice I give to the teams of people that I get to meet with and talk about, their upcoming SCIF projects, I kind of give this as my stock advice. It's the team that makes the project great. Understanding who your accrediting official is and their requirements, your CTTA, who's your Certified Technical Tempest Authority, understanding your security team's requirements internally on what the program space needs to perform at the level necessary for work to get done, and then your program team. Ultimately, it's the responsibility of everybody coming together and clearly defining their stated outcomes so that we as a general contractor and a designer can come together, an architect, can build you a space that not only checks all the boxes to meet accreditation, but also is a usable space with a clear purpose in mind. I think that owners, because it's oftentimes a rush moment, because we found out we have a program, hurry up and get it done, we can jump in too fast and try to move on just getting you space built. And that can lead to missed opportunities to future-proof you so that you don't end up with a space that's mono-use, but it's we can create a space that allows you to grow with it. And so ultimately, I believe that the biggest opportunity for owners out there who are in the position of coming up with a new facility for their program is to truly talk to your team and get early access to your accrediting team, your AO and your CTTA, because those individuals are going to shape some of the most critical part of your project.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciated the conversation, and this was really informative. I really look forward to working with Emblem Builders here in the near future.
Hector, thank you for having me out. I look forward to working with you as well.